Welcome, one and all, to 2026. We made it. I really hope this year's better for everybody. Anyway, existential traumas aside, I thought it would be good to share my fixes for the Artificer. You might not think that it needs fixes, and that's fine. That's up to you. I think, along with the other DMs in my group, that Wizards has it out for a lot of the half-casters for some reason. Rangers and Paladins are still good, but they feel a little bit, they obviously have been nerfed. The fix for us, at least, is the free Divine Smite you can do without using a bonus action. For Ranger, there are a bunch of tweaks and twists and changes that we've played around with. The one that I've ended up landing on is when you hit a creature, you can automatically apply your Hunter's Mark, both for that attack and going forward, as long as it's one of your free ones from the favoured enemies. You can swap that for free when the creature is no more. For the Artificer, I think things are a little more complicated because some of the subclasses are really quite good and some of them are less good. And I also think the core class is generally a bit stronger, but I still think it needs a bit of a fix. So I'm going to go over just a quick list and explanation of the tweaks that I am implementing for my games, as well as why I'm doing them and kind of my thoughts on it as well. Obviously, I've reviewed it anyway. I'll put a link to that in the description. But let's go ahead and get through it, shall we? It's going to be a shorter video, don't worry. So overall, I do like the Artificer for the most part. I do think my biggest issue with it is at level 20. I don't think it needed the nerf that we got to Soul of Artifice. I think the additional number on your saving throws was perfectly fine. I don't dislike the new version, but I think it's too Flash of Genius heavy. But also it's level 20, right? So in the scheme of things, fixing a capstone is largely not that important. Certainly not unless you're playing to 20 regularly. The Ranger capstone is obviously the easy one to point to there, and I have thoughts on how I'm going to fix that, but I haven't played around with them enough yet, so I'm not going to share those. The main change I do think is important for the Artificer is the spell list. As a first-party class, it has no access to any of the cool third-party spells. Not because it's a first-party class, but it's not on the SRD, which means that while there are unofficial while there are unofficial spell lists and fixes for this, there is nothing in D&D Beyond. I've made a very basic feat here which adds a bunch of different spells in, and the way that it works is you get this feat just for being an Artificer, and then you can choose one spell of each level that you can cast to your spell list. Just the end. And then every time you long rest, you can change it, much like you can with your normal spells. It includes the ones that I think are thematic. So there's a lot of the magnetic stuff, but from the Heliana's books. There's the gravity and chronergy stuff from the Wildermount books, because I think they fit quite well, and there's a few other things. The Valda's Spire of Secrets. The Gun Mage spells are a really good fit here, so Finger Guns is a fantastic choice, as is Moment to Think, Accelerate, Decelerate, Ballistic Smite, things like that. I think these all just help give the class a bit more oomph and variety when it comes to the spell options. And I also think that as the intelligence-based one, the wizard-adjacent half-caster, that you should have more spells available than the base class gives you, just in your spell list. I don't think this breaks it. You don't get free casts of these or anything. You still have to use your spell slots, but it makes your spell storing item a lot more interesting, which I think is good. And I also just think it makes the class more fun, both for the DM and for the player. On the subject of the spell storing item as well, Colby talked about this in his Armourer video, which was fantastic, about how if you cast a spell at level 3, even if you're casting a level 1 spell, it is considered a level 3 spell. And I agree with that fully. I don't think I'd deep dived into that rule specifically because it's not all that relevant most of the time, but I like that a lot, so that is 100% how I'm rolling spell storing items. So Cure Wounds at level 3 is a level 3 spell, so you can store it as such, and it would be the same with these as well. Yeah, that's it for the main class, really. It's just the spell list. I just think the spell list is naff. In terms of the subclasses, I think that there's probably more work that can be done on all of these. I have not tested the subclasses as much as I would like, nor have I seen my players play them very much. It's come out at a weird time of the year for a lot of us D&D players because the holiday season means that most of us don't get a chance to play as much D&D as we'd like. Heartbreaking, I know. But I've got a little fix for everything apart from the Artillerist. I think the Artillerist is just good. I don't think it needs a fix. I have some fun thoughts on what you can do with it, which I'll get to in a second, I guess. But we will get to those, yeah. We'll get those when we get those. For the Alchemist, I think there's a temptation to make sure you can always choose an elixir because you get to make 2. I think allowing you to choose one of them is perfectly reasonable per long rest. I also think being able to use a magic action to choose one of them is also perfectly reasonable. I do think they could maybe be stronger but it's a core feature. The main thing that I want to change for this is for drinking an elixir, a creature can drink an elixir or administer it to another creature within 5 feet of yourself. I think you should be able to throw them. I think you should be able to throw them to your friends or at your allies for some reason, if that's something you want to do, at your enemies, sorry, if that's what you want to do. I also think that they should just get proficiency with thrown poisons and things like that. I think there's a feat that they added, and maybe the Forgotten Realms book that does that. It's a fun concept, but it's one that doesn't really work because they're too expensive to really lean into. I do think that's something that you should be able to do as the Alchemist. I think throwing poisons is a lot of fun to apply them. Same with the buffs. I think you should be able to throw them at your friends to apply those as well. No deck save, no nothing, just yeet. You're already using a consumable, which is already a big enough cost in my opinion. So that's that. That's my fix for the Alchemist. I think that there is a lot to be said going forwards, but I actually think the Alchemical Savant, the damage boosting part of the class, is pretty solid, and I like Tasha's Bubbling Cauldron a fair bit as well. I think overall the armor is relatively solid. I have a bugbear with it, however, mostly with the capstone feature. The damage initially of the armor models are 1d10 for the Demolisher, you get 1d8 for the Guardian, and 1d6 for the Infiltrator at level 15, and I mentioned this in my review. The damage goes up from 1d10, which is an average of 5.5, to 2d6 for the Dreadnought, which is an average of 7. That's a 1.5 difference. The Guardian goes from 1d8, which is an average of 4.5, to 1d10, which is an average of 5.5. That is a 1 point difference. And the Infiltrator goes up from 1d6, which is 3.5 average, to 2d6, which is 7. That is double. Just double the dice for the other ones. The Dreadnought should go up to 2d10, the Guardian should go up to 2d8, and it's truly absurd that that isn't the case anyway. I also think Colby is right here regarding the ability to make flame tongue versions of your armor weapons as well. The armor weapons that you create, the Force Demolisher or the whatever else, the Thunder Pulse, these count as simple weapons, and you can make flame tongue versions of any weapons now. I think that you should be able to make flame tongue versions of your cool Force Demolishers. I think that's perfectly fine. I think that's cool, actually. Super cool. So, yes, that's that. Anyway, the Artillerist I just think is good. I think it's flexible. I think it's fairly strong. It's good stuff. The one thing that I would say is the Eldritch Cannon is adorable. Obviously, it misses a lot of spells due to being an object, not to being a creature, which is good for fireball and things like that. The Arcane Firearm is just a good general boost. The one thing that I would say is I really like the level 9 feature, the detonate feature. If you're playing an Artillerist, I do think you should take the catapult spell, because you can you should be allowed to catapult your Eldritch Cannon into an area to make everything take a dex save if you think it's going to go down anyway. I also really like the idea of catapulting ball bearings and caltrops and things like that, and having them explode where they are. Sure, the enemies will know where they are, but they're already in the area, and then maybe making them make that save at the beginning of the turn or as that happens. That's very DM dependent, because technically, rules as written, the catapult spell reads that it destroys whatever object it is that you fire, but you're firing a group of objects. Theoretically, if it's a bag of ball bearings, I would rule of cool it myself. You do not have to. I am not your dad, I think. Next is the Battlesmith. The Battlesmith, the main one is, and I do this with all of the pet classes, I don't think you should be required to use a bonus action to make them do stuff. I think it's incredibly silly. I don't know why you have to do that with something which is a class feature and then not have to do that with something which is a summon. Some of the summons don't require that. So I remove that. I don't think it's a great bit of design. I think it's needlessly bonus action heavy, and I don't think the damage that you're getting from it is high enough to really warrant it, to be frank. The Cartographer is the one I'm focusing on most. A player of mine going to be playing one of this in an upcoming campaign, and he's very excited about it, but we kind of both looked at it and went through some of the stuff and came to the conclusion it needs a bit of tweaking, I think, to feel viable. And it's for the same reason that the Ranger does. The Ranger is very reliant on Hunter's Mark, which is a concentration spell, which doesn't scale very well. Don't at me. There are better concentration spells and you know it. With the Cartographer, it's the exact same thing, but with Fairy Fire. Because of that, I'm doing the same fix that I'm doing with Hunter's Mark, which is to say that once you get to your mapping magic feature, which is your level 3 feature, and you can cast Fairy Fire without expending a spell slot, if you hit a creature, you can have it light up and cast the spell with the creature as this center of the center of the emanation for the spell, marking the creatures or giving the chance to mark the creatures within with Fairy Fire as per a saving throw, obviously. This frees up your bonus action, which is incredibly important, and also you don't need to hold concentration on it when using the free cast, which is something I do with the Hunter's Mark as well. I think this allows you to play the support class while not giving up on everything else that you could be doing, which is mostly supportive magic. If you're placing the Cartographer, you're not going for damage. But yes, that's my thoughts on that. I think I spoke clearly enough. I'm kind of tired. And then for level 5, all of the classes get a damage boost at level 5. Apart from the Cartographer, I don't think you can argue this as a damage boost because it's exhausting. Guided Precision reads that once per turn, when you cast a spell from your Cartographer spell list or hit a creature affected by Fairy Fire with an attack roll, you can add your intelligence modifier to 1 damage roll or of the spell or attack. Obviously, this affects all attack rolls, which is something. I think it should just be all Artificer spells. You're already limiting it by the fact that it has to be a Fairy Fire target, which is niche and really brutal when it comes to if you are having to hold concentration and cast it as an action. I think that's more than enough of a limiter, so I think opening it up to the full spell list is perfectly reasonable. It also reads that in addition, when you take damage, you can't lose concentration on Fairy Fire. I think that's obviously irrelevant if you're doing the non-concentration fix that I have suggested here. I think that the boost in damage potential that you're getting from changing the feat to include all Artificer spells means that that's probably not an issue. But if that is something you want to tweak as well, you could maybe make it so that any creature affected by your Fairy Fire has disadvantage on the save or something like that. Or that you could affect with Fairy Fire would have disadvantage on the save. It's up to you, as is all of this. I appreciate that there's probably a lot of people that think that the Artificer doesn't need fixing or boosting, and I think that's fine if that's what you think and that's how you play. I like my players to be able to kind of lean into the fantasies and the vision that they have for the characters, and I do think my players are probably slightly stronger than most because of the little buffs and tweaks that I give them. But I like playing D&D like that. It speaks to me spiritually, emotionally, therapeutically. I like it a lot. It means I get to use cooler monsters, which is good, and it leans into the seat of the pants combats that I really like running, whereby everyone is a moment away from the end of that particular player character. But let me know what you think, as always. It's a bit of a ramshackle one to start the year off with, because I'm recording it towards the end of obviously 2025, and it has been a full year of very tiring stuff. The year ahead is interesting. I'm hoping we get lots of cool third-party releases that I can look at and brew with. Let me know what your plans are, I guess, for 2026 in terms of D&D and beyond. I'm planning on doing a Circle of Mutation Druid build coming up. That'll be next Thursday, and obviously we'll be kicking off with the class-specific third-party feats soon too, which I'm excited about. We'll start with Artillerist as well. Very exciting. But that's that for now. If you enjoyed this, like and subscribe as always. Last year was a fairly big year for me on YouTube because I hit 1,000 subs, which is cool. Nearly at 1,300 at the time of recording. The last few videos have been a bit quieter, but I think that's fine. It's Christmas. It's only to be expected. That, and it's very clear that people just aren't as interested in the high-level spells as they are in the lower-level ones, and that's fine too. But that's that. I do hope you take care until the next time I see you or you see me. And that's all for now. Goodbye.